put into consideration, we were paying £240 a tonne last year for fertiliser. It's over £1,000 now. Red diesel was 50p, it's £1. You know, our feed costs has doubled. You know, some of these guys that are producing eggs, free range, you know, barn eggs, they can't afford to feed their chickens. So we're going to be starting to lose production. Some of my friends, dairy farmers, they're not going to put fertiliser on, they're not going to put extra feed. So we're turning that tap off, that food tap that people don't really understand. And everybody says the supermarket, but look, the important people in this equation are the farmers, the people that are producing the food that goes on them shelves. So the important thing is now government should be looking at a local seasonal strategy to grow more food in this country. We need a farming food revolution in the UK where we're growing more of our own. We're not dependent on imports. And you know what? We need to be a less wasteful society. When supermarkets are putting 2 for the price of 1 and people are going home, they're not respecting that food. We're wasting as much food as what we're eating. We've got to start addressing this problem. And we've got to remember, we've got to produce this food at an affordable rate for people as well, which is very difficult. There's going to be farmers going out of business. There's going to be processors going out of business unless these supermarkets and governments start standing up and stop taking the cream and stop taking the profit and give it back to the people that really deserve it.
Is that convincing you, Lowry?
Well, he makes a very strong case. Just I want to ask where this lovely farm is with the sun shining in Wales. Where in Wales are you, Gareth?
Where are you?
Looks gorgeous.
I'm in Llanrwst at the moment, but I live in Llanfairfechan on the Carneddau mountain range.
Wow,
I'm
beautiful.
In Llanrwst on a bit of business.
Well, it looks as beautiful as it sounds. Now, I know that you are a sheep and a beef farmer. So how has all these fuel prices affected you directly? And what sort of actions are you going to be taking now?
Well, immensely. I could, you know, take you around 10 farms in my local area where farmers are cutting down on the stock, cutting down on the cows, cutting down on the sheep, because, you know, it's not sustainable to be paying this kind of money for fertiliser. Let's not forget now that half the world's food is produced with artificial fertiliser. And if that has trebled in its cost, things are going to start to really slow down. You know, food production, there's going to be less food going onto them supermarket shelves, and unless government and the supermarkets step in now to help with this, the food won't be there anyway. And people forget, you know, how important the farmer is in this equation, and we really need to get the message out there how important local food chains are and not be so dependent on imported foods.
Well, if indeed we start seeing some empty shelves, I think they'll understand the importance of farmers then, the general public. But why do you think government has been so slow on this?
Well, the sleepwalking into food shortages, there's no doubt in my mind. You know, the report, the white paper on agriculture, on you know, food production, this country's 6 months behind. Why? Because they don't really have an understanding. They don't have anybody there that knows what's going on in the countryside, you know, and we have to really bang this drum. We want to be feeding our nation in an affordable way, in a sustainable and environmentally friendly way. And we have to have help. You know, we can't do it. We need public support, we need government support, and we need supermarkets paying a fair price for what they're putting on them shelves to the farmers, or they won't be there for them.
And if government don't step in and supermarkets don't start rationing, when, Gareth, do you think we're going to start to see dwindling supplies on our shelves?
Well, I'll tell you now, when you think about what's happening in Ukraine, okay, and a quarter of the world's grains are coming out of Ukraine, and, you know, we know they're the major producer of sunflower oil and exporter. All that's beginning to slow down. These farmers in Ukraine are out fighting in the fields, not planting. Now, that is going to be a massive effect for August, September, November. That's when we'll really feel it. So we should be putting into place now some kind of plan where we're growing more produce in this country. You know, the government should be putting money into putting polytunnels up where we can grow more of our own veg, more of our own salads. You know, there's some great producers in this country. We've got some fantastic technology, but they're not investing in it. And without that investment, we are going to go hungry. We have to watch after our own going forward. And this is really important, because if we don't, we're in trouble.
Christina, earlier on in the conversation you said that, you know, we may need to ration in future, but actually listening to Gareth, it does sound like this is something we probably have to sort out now if it's going to hit our shelves in autumn.
Well, I completely agree with Gareth that we should be eating much more locally produced food, and I think that, you know, we should generally, it's better for the planet, it's better for our economy if we buy and eat and produce locally. The trouble is that a big supply of the labour has been cut off now, and I know farmers who are really struggling to find help now because their workers have gone back to the EU, and we all have heard about harvests and fruits that haven't been picked because there's been a lack of workers. So we have to be honest and say this is part of the problem here. And producing, and you know, the EU subsidies are also being cut off, and what that's going to lead to is that farmers are no longer going to get help in producing food. They're going to get help in, you know, producing sort of wilding the land, which is a completely different issue and may be good for the environment, but doesn't help get food on the table. So I think the issue is much bigger than rationing, actually, and I think the government is you know, their priority is cost of living, and they will be very happy to import.
Is it their priority? Is it really? They've done so little.
No, they couldn't care less about it, but from a PR point of view, they know that's the issue that people are facing. And so I think they're going to do what they can to get as many cheap imports in from elsewhere in the world, having cut off our main market in the EU.
I think one of the other problems, certainly where I live, which is on the northern end of London, on the Green Belt, is that farms are being turned into housing. Planning laws have been changed, and Kent, Essex, Hertfordshire, well, I know this area of the country, and you see Gareth is nodding there, is that's the only thing the farmers are allowed to grow now. You can sell your land and you can have as many houses as you like, but you can't actually grow stuff. You're agreeing, aren't you, Gareth?
Let's Gareth come in on that.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there. And I'll tell you what our problem in Wales is, that the Welsh government want to grow now 10%. They want to plant 10% of Wales under trees. In the biggest blooming shortage of food we are going to go, they're talking about planting trees in 10%. I've got no problem. There's trees all around us here. Trees on edges is not a problem, and in hedges is not a problem. But planting fertile, good, productive land to trees is bonkers. We have to address, and this is why I'm saying, and this is really important for people to understand, we need a farming food revolution in this country, and it needs to happen ASAP before we go hungry. Let's really address what we've got here before people start thinking that they're not going to fill their bellies.
It is quite worrying, because if you listen to what Gareth is saying, the shelves are going to be empty. It is going to be a real shock to the system. But maybe, Christina, this is exactly what we need, because we have become a fairly wasteful society. We throw out so much food. As Gareth was saying, we've got the 2-for-1 buy-in deals at supermarkets. People just take the 2-for-1 and then throw one away when they don't eat it. Maybe we should start cancelling those kind of deals in supermarkets.
I think there's a lot to be said for that. I think we are very wasteful in our food consumption, or rather non-consumption, in this country. And also, it's just the case that a food shop has over the years become much cheaper than it used to be. And the cost-cutting supermarket chains like Aldi and Lidl, they've done a great job in reducing costs and making food more affordable for people. But I think, and long may that continue in many ways, particularly in the current crisis. But I do think that ultimately, for all kinds of reasons, the future of the planet and so on, we should eat less meat, but eat good meat, cut down on factory farming, eat more locally produced food, but it will be more expensive. And the question is, we will have to face choices over that, difficult choices, because we've been used to having very cheap, mass-produced food. And we can continue to do that if the food is available, but we can't have both.